Welcome back to Her Standards. I am joined by an amazing panel, and on this episode, we are talking about surviving the loss of a child. To be part and parcel of this discussion, please join us on our social media pages at KTN Home across all media platforms, or you can talk to me directly at Quintambori on Facebook and Instagram, as well as Queenie Saina on Twitter. Ladies, thank you again. I mean, this is really heavy. It's we don't take it for granted that you're here to share your story, to support other people who are going through loss, and doing this at a time when we are talking about Mother's Day. Well, before we took the break, we were just talking about some of the or what would I say, inhumanness of the comments that people make at people who have gone through loss, that they may actually mean well, but at that particular moment, for the person going through loss, it is really hurtful. And Rosa, maybe you can add to that. What else can people do? I mean, how else can people be mindful of another person's loss, especially that of a child? And what are some of the ways that they can actually reach out to people? Because I know deep down the intentions are well meant, but because they're not the ones suffering loss, they might not understand. So from your perspective as a counselor, how do we go about this?
Maybe just to briefly highlight maybe some of the things that are said, because sometimes we may say insensitive, but we don't even know what's insensitive. And sometimes we'll say, I understand. No, you do not understand, because even if you've had a loss of a child, this particular relationship was different. It was not what you had with your child. So sometimes we call them the platitudes to avoid. I understand, it is well. You will get another one. You're still young. This one was small. It was a child out of wedlock, so at least you'll get married and get another one. It's God's will, you know. Sometimes culturally they'll say it's because you did something, you remember you. And also another hurtful thing is, could be because you've had an abortion. Because there are people who believe that child loss happens because someone had had previous abortions, or sometimes also that God is punishing them because they've lived a careless life, quote unquote. So some of the things that attach to the value of a person, we want to avoid that. And what do we want to do? Number one, we just want to normalize. Normalize the feelings, especially if you're very close. I will not say, don't feel bad. Don't cry, stop crying. And sometimes we even encourage, if someone is grieving, let's avoid wiping their tears and patting them on the back and shaking them. You know, we are distracting them from the moment that they need to express their emotion. Because if I'm wiping your tears, what am I telling you? Stop crying. You know,
woman up, or be a big girl.
Stop crying. And that's why I'm clearing up the mess. Because if I'm wiping something, it means it shouldn't be there. Or I'm shaking you, I am distracting you, I'm holding. Sometimes we say, if someone can still walk and stand, let them, so that they can be in that moment. Just be close by to offer the support, because we want to even avoid actions that are trying to distract or stop or send a message. Remember, in grief you're very vulnerable. So if I would pat you normally, when you're grieving, if I am patting you, it may even feel like you're telling me stop crying. So we want to look at normalizing the emotions. It's okay to feel what you feel. If someone says, I'm angry at God, how could he take away my baby? Just tell them, I may not understand, but I hear you. I can imagine what you feel. It may not be well and I don't understand, but I am here. If you need me to say anything, or to hug you, or to run an errand, I will be here. And also validate their emotion. In validating, we are saying, let me talk about it. As you're listening to me, what you can do is be there to listen. Don't offer solutions. Don't offer counseling, quote unquote, if you're, advice giving. Usisikie vibaya, usiseme hivyo. Sometimes when someone says, Mungu haulizwi maswali. But let me put it in that context of God. If you're looking through the godly aspect, people like Job and David, they would ask God, how dare you do this to me after all that I have done? and Job took over 40 chapters just questioning God. So when we and I believe even for the other religions, they have something to offer and look at it from that perspective. So we want to avoid minimizing the feelings that someone has, because with grief it's all about the feelings. Remember, grief throws you in an out of control situation. There's nothing to fix about grief. So we want to just normalize the emotions, allow them to talk about it. Like Ashley has said, be there. Physical presence, even if you cannot say anything. If you're feeling that your own grief is being triggered, and that can lead you to say, hata mi nilipoteza watano, when ni moja tu, you know, or in English, I have just lost 5, you've lost 1.
Oh
so
God.
Avoid bringing your own grief into another
someone
person's
else's grief. Yeah.
Assuming that if I shared my more tragic story with you, you will somehow feel better and stop grieving. So sometimes as a society, we want to look at, when we go to support people, is it that we are trying to make peace with our own grief and be uncomfortable in our own grief, so we want them to stop reminding us about our grief by them grieving? So it's very important to be able to look at who, when I'm coming to see you, who is it about? Is it about you or about me? Because if it's about you, I will ask, and sometimes just ask, what can I do for you? What do you need? Can I help? So what do you want me to say? What do you want to hear? Because that will help me enter into your shoes and walk your journey with you. Whether I have lost, even as a therapist, I cannot come in and assume that I know, and so I'll come and start telling you things. I will want to hear, how does it make you feel? That's another good question you can ask. How are you feeling today? How has this week been like? What has been the highlight? What has been the low light? Because sometimes we forget that grief is not in the 1 week. You know, after the first 2 weeks people leave, that's when grief almost starts. Because this one is bereavement. We are mourning. But a month later, everyone has gone. Those are the times to even keep checking. How are you coping? How does it make you feel? Are you eating well? The things we take for granted. Are you sleeping well? Have you gotten out to have sun today? Can I take you for lunch? Can we go and make our nails? Because even physical grooming does not matter in that time. Why do I need to shower? My child has died. So those practical aspects that we can be able to help this person so that they can concentrate on their grief. Finally, to say, why are we talking about practical help? Because grief work and emotional work takes as much energy as physical labor. So when someone is grieving, they're almost perennially tired. So we want to try at least remove the burden of doing dishes, running errands, getting groceries, cooking, so that they can focus. Because even as you're grieving, you just get very tired. And people who grieve will tell you sometimes, I just don't know why I'm tired. I just woke up and I'm so tired, I can't get out of bed. We cannot tell them, you've slept the whole night, you know, or it's been a year. We just want to say, how can I help? What can I do to make it easier? I am here for you.
Well said. As Ashley was talking, actually, and she brought in her husband and how he received the news, and he was able to express himself. You know, coming from the societies that we come from, where men are raised to be strong and to deal with their emotions. I know communities where you're not even allowed to, your tears should not be seen. Okay? What do you have to say about that?
Cultural shift is important, us to understand about mental health and even making peace with grief. Like we said, the death is what is abnormal. So my reaction is normal, and that helps for a man who may be watching this. If you're feeling teary, you're feeling emotional, you're feeling lost, your reaction is normal. So there's nothing abnormal about you. The death is what was abnormal, because as a culture, remember sometimes, let me talk about the African culture, for example. Men have been seen to be fixers, to be protectors, to be providers, to be there as a shield. Now this man may be feeling, I couldn't shield this death from happening. I couldn't protect my wife from that pain, or my partner. I couldn't fix it you know, should I have gone to a better hospital? So in that middle of guilt and blame, we want to again normalize the feelings. And even for any man who's listening to me, that it's okay. It's normal to feel what you're feeling. And for most men, their grief may manifest as anger, because grief throws you into a nothingness. It's like, how I like to put it is, it's like being thrown in the middle of Indian Ocean, but you didn't get yourself there on a dark night and you're blindfolded. You just don't know where you are. And even if they unfolded your eyes and it's dark and you're in the middle of a sea, you don't know where to go.
What to do.
So that feeling of out of control, embrace it and say it is okay. Sit into those feelings, then allow yourself to express. Now the thing with men, most men may not cry. So we may not wait for them to cry to say, no, he's feeling it. If he's not crying, he's not. And probably for the women partners, it may help, so that if he's not crying, you're not telling him, you're not feeling the death. I am the one who's because I am crying. Them, they like to probably move on, quote unquote. They may engage more in work, in sporting activities and hobbies. That's how they are processing. They may want to be very aloof, not talk about it. Most women may process by talking about it. Men may process by being very aloof and not talking about it. So it's important to just look at the differences, so that if my partner is not doing what I'm doing, it doesn't mean he's not appreciating the loss. So partners, how can they support one another? Or even if you have a man friend, is to ask, how are you feeling? How does it make you feel? What are you doing to cope? So that if they want to play a game, take them out on that game. Because in the middle of that game, they'll say, hey, you know, Bana, me, when it happened, me, I didn't know what to say. So you're giving them now a chance to be able to express themselves. So those aspects of differences do not make anyone's grief more important or less, but just looking at the individual ways. The key thing is to look at avoiding unhealthy habits during grieving. So that if it's, for example, a man or even a woman, if they're indulging in alcohol, self-destructive behaviors, cutting themselves, driving, going for long drives, speeding, all of that, we would just want to help them and tell them, I'm here for you. Can I drive you to work today? You know, bosses, give them less work. Even for the mental, go home. Go be with your partner, because you're trying to also help them be in that reality. And for some also, reassigning tasks that need a lot of concentration, you may reassign that to help them come to terms with that loss.
Yeah, we'll come back to you again, because you know, this whole process, maternity process, is more of, it's so oriented towards the mom as opposed to the father, who is an equal partner, by the way.
They made the baby together.
So we'll get back to you, but I am aware that Ashley and her partner are rainbow parents. You got another baby. I wonder how easy or difficult that was for you, you know, just coming to terms, accepting the loss of your child and getting ready to move on. How did that go for you?
So after the death of my baby, we actually did a burial ceremony, and we buried the baby. And for me, I didn't want to really get pregnant again. In fact, I just said 5 years max. I really don't want to get a baby. I want to process this whole grieving period and just be. And I did all the necessary measures to ensure that I will not get pregnant again. And 3 months down the line, I got pregnant. And it was so funny. I got pregnant. Even after getting the news of the fact that I'm pregnant, I still didn't want to keep the baby. And after discussing with the doctors, the fear of going through what I went through with the preeclampsia, the fear of losing a child, the whole process, I've not even grieved my baby. I felt like I still really, really love my baby. How can I love this other baby who is coming? So I think it was a lot of emotional trauma, I would say. So when I actually was discharged from hospital, the doctors told me not to get pregnant. Yeah, and that's why I had to take the necessary measures to not get pregnant again. And when it happened, I was given the opportunity to terminate the pregnancy or to continue with the pregnancy as a high risk patient. And I discovered when I was 2 months already in, and my husband was like, okay, this cannot be a coincidence. You had a coil,
Yeah.
it is quite safe, it's backfired. Okay, what do we do? We checked the EDD. It was the same day that I gave birth to my baby, Zuri. It was 8th of March.
What?
And that was the sealing deal, I think,
You're
because
like,
it cannot happen by chance. They
this
have
is
the
this
same
is a sign.
EDD. Yeah. So my mother-in-law, my mom, and my hubby, we were like, okay, let's then go through this pregnancy. So we went through the same thing, went through the pregnancy. The same time preeclampsia set in, the first time it set in again. And I was like, okay, Sawa, this baby is going to die. This is now how it's going to be. It's playing out again the same way that it played out the other time. Thank God this time round I was not admitted. I was closely monitored by doctors. At the 30th week, I went for my clinic, and they discovered that my baby had stopped growing at 26 weeks. So the baby is, number one, very small. She was going through something called intrauterine growth restriction, which is because of the high blood pressure. It's too much to the point that it constricts the growth of the baby. So they said, we now have to deliver you early. So I was like, oh my God, now I have to have baby again. The chances of surviving, you know. So that was on a Monday when I was being told this. I went in for jabs to mature the lungs of the baby on Friday and Saturday, and then I was prepared for delivery on Tuesday the next week. So on Sunday I started feeling bad again, and I just told my husband, I used to have a pressure machine at home, and I took my pressure and it was crazily high. And I told him, let's go to the same hospital, yeah, and get checked. And when we were on our way to the hospital, the local hospital where I stay, I felt like I'm peeing, you know. And I told my hubby, I think my water just broke, and we laughed. We actually laughed about it because we didn't want to tense and all, but we just laughed. But when I walked out of the car and I looked down, I was gushing a lot of blood. The blood was coming out. The way you can open a tap like this, it was coming out. I could not control the flow of it coming out. So I was like, right now, probably the baby has already passed because I cannot beat like this and the baby is surviving.
Still alive.
And I need to save my life by trying and calming down so that I don't get the pressure doesn't rise and I start bleeding. So I walk in and the guard said, wasichana wenye wanaingianga hivi hawatokangi.
No.
So meaning I'll just go in there and die. Yeah. So I went in, walked to the maternity, called my doctor. My doctor by then was in Mombasa. And you're like, okay, we are doomed. Yeah. So my doctor actually coordinated with the resident doctor at the hospital. They gave me 2 injections and he gave me 20 minutes to get to Aga Khan. And I went in, he had arranged every single thing. I think that's one of the best things of having a doctor. In case of any emergency, the doctor can be able to arrange for anything to happen. And so I was taken in, wheeled in. When I was inside, the nurses were saying, oh, this girl is gushing a lot of blood. They're taking my pressure. The doctor has already come to do the surgery. It was just so chaotic, yeah? So when I think I blacked out a bit at the theater table, and then I came back and now I was being closed up. And I asked the doctor, where is my baby? I didn't hear her cry. And the doctor didn't tell me much. So I just knew, okay, the baby has passed on. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So I was taken to the recovery room, and my hubby came and he's like, yeah, I told him, yeah, the baby has died. And he's like, no, the baby has not died. I've just taken her to NICU right now. I'm like, don't tell me that to make me feel okay. If the baby has passed on, just tell me actually the baby has passed on, and that's the case. But the baby was alive. And maybe to take you a bit in front, after the doctor delivered me, our pediatrician, or my baby's pediatrician, told me that she received the baby when she had flatlined. So she was not breathing and everything, she was great. The baby was not even a kilo. She was 975 grams. She was very tiny. So they had to resuscitate her back to life, and that's how she came back. Okay, with God and also the help of the doctors who really persisted and tried so much to bring her back. So the baby went to NICU. We stayed in NICU for 3 months in hospital. She went through a bit of challenges like blood transfusions, but she was okay. She only used oxygen for 3 days, and she was perfect. She was just in hospital for growth alone.
How is she now?
She's so active. She's so active. She's called Amani. She just turned 2 in January.
Wow.
And she is my rainbow baby.
Oh my God.
Yes.
After surviving your loss and now getting this baby, and now the emotions are coming in.
Yeah.
Yes, how is the husband taking it? How are things?
First of all, when the baby was in the hospital, we actually said, let's not invest our time here. Me and my hubby. It was like a deliberate conversation. And we said, we'll come to hospital, we'll be coming to hospital for 1 hour and then we go out. Let's not carry the baby, because we could not see the chances of her surviving. She was super tiny compared to how Zuri was. She was super tiny. We did not see her viability of living. And so even when we were in the nursery, the nurses could tell me, like the first day she told me, oh, aren't you excited to carry the baby? Because now the nurses had already known me from the previous you don't want to carry your baby, so you carry your baby. And I'm like, I don't want to carry my baby. I don't want to kangaroo. And they're like, Ashley, it's important for you. You've not seen your baby for 2 days. Kindly kangaroo.
Because you were detaching.
Yes, I was detaching
yourself.
I was detaching
And
myself
preparing
from-
yourself for the worst.
for the worst, yeah. And I didn't want to get emotionally connected to the child. And when I held her and I told the nurse, okay, mchukue. Like, I don't want to continue this anymore. But when she stopped using oxygen on her own, I then gained, the confidence. But one thing I think that it's important to say is a lot of people don't realize how scary pregnancy after loss is.
Yes.
You know, it is a crippling feeling, because you feel like, oh my God, I'm going to lose. Like, you're going through the whole process of again of being of losing a baby, yeah. And every time you think, if this happens, this baby is going to die. If this happens, and it's a constant battle, even today, to feel like this baby is not fully mine. Something can happen and she can get away from me, you know. So on my end, I'm extremely protective. My friends call me I'm a Dettol mom because I am like this. My baby was never seen with anyone for close to 1 year, because we try to maintain also the standards of the hospital for her not to get infection. If she's in contact with someone who has a cough, she'll get sick and she'll get back to hospital. And people didn't really understand that process. You know, when you get a baby, everyone wants to come and hold the baby and celebrate. But for us, that is different. Yeah, because also our first child died out of an infection. So if now we are trying to prevent something else that possibly cannot happen again.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ashley, for sharing your story with us. I see we are running out of time, but we cannot end the show without talking about having more involvement of men in terms of dealing with loss, as well as the process of going through counseling for couples. I remember earlier in the show we talked about the culture of not going for counseling. It seems like it's something that we do as Kenyans, as Africans, because we believe we are okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So as we wind up, Rosa.
The position of men, one is that let's as a society also allow men to express their emotion. The culture of men need to be strong. Emotions are not gender specific. Emotions are human specific. So as long as you're a human being, you have a right to experience, unless you're not a human being, you have a right to experience the emotions, whatever emotion. Again, emotions are not classified. That you need to feel happy, you don't need to be feeling angry, you need to be sad, you don't need to be sad. We allow people to express their emotions. And also when you were asking about men, supporting their partners is very important, just to be able to walk through, because sometimes one may be so afraid, am I hurting her more? But being there, asking how can I help, and walking through that process. It's okay to go for couples therapy. That's one of the things that I highly recommend. It does not mean that you're sick again. So go for couples therapy. You'll also be helped to get this relationship on track. Because how do we talk about it, or do we not talk about it in the house? So one person wants to talk, the other one is like, achana na hiyo mambo. But me, I don't want that thing again. So helping each other to communicate, what are you feeling now? How can we walk through it and work together? So grief is manageable and people can heal. Time does not heal. What you do with the time is what determines where that time will leave you at the end of the day.
Tell us where we can find you.
Okay.
Yes. So
You can find the organization Zuri Nzilani Foundation on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter.
I can be found on Facebook as Marama Therapy. Marama Therapy on Facebook, Marama Therapy on Instagram, and my contacts are there if you'd like to have a session or consultancy trainings for your groups. Yes.
what a nice way to end it. Ladies, thank you so much for your time, for allowing us to share your story, Ashley. We are in the season of Mother's Day. I know this was painful. Still Mother's Day. We are still mothers. Whether
Yes.
we have children or they are, transitioned to another place. We are still mothers. So I'm going to ask you to face the camera and say something to your mother figures, to people who mean the world to you. Just face the camera, say something. I believe it will have an impact in their lives. Just that's your camera.
This Mother's Day, I would really want to appreciate my mom. She has been very supportive throughout my journey, from the time she conceived me till now. And I'm really grateful for the role that you play in my life. You're my role model. I love you so much, Mom. And you mean the world to me. Absolutely the world to me.
I'd like to appreciate my mom, but most importantly, I think from where I sit, I also want to just talk to all mothers and say that whether your child died, you still have the right to celebrate Mother's Day.
Wow, and from Her Standards crew, we take this earliest opportunity to wish all the mothers, aspiring mothers, mother figures, honorary mothers, bonus moms, all kinds of moms. We just want to wish you a happy Mother's Day. We celebrate you. If you care for somebody, please drop a comment and wish that mother figure a happy Mother's Day. We just want to say thank you so much for your time and thank you for joining us on this episode of Her Standards. Let's keep talking. We are available across all social media platforms at KTN Home, or you can talk to me directly at Quintambori on Facebook and Instagram, as well as Queenie Saina on Twitter. Till next time, it's bye from us, and see you next week.